The global trade conflict has escalated sharply, with China raising retaliatory tariffs on U.S. goods to 84%, up from the previously announced 34%, following U.S. President Donald Trump's imposition of 104% tariffs on Chinese imports. This marks a critical turning point in the U.S.-China trade war, leading to significant market disruptions. The U.S. stock market saw historic losses, with the S&P 500 dropping to its worst performance since the 1950s, nearing bear market territory. U.S. Treasuries also experienced massive sell-offs as fears of capital fleeing U.S. assets intensified. China's retaliatory actions also included blacklisting U.S. AI firms linked to military technology, exacerbating the tension. This has contributed to widespread market volatility across Asia and beyond. In addition to sharp losses in China's blue-chip stocks, which fell 1.2%, Japan's Nikkei 225 dropped nearly 4%, and Hong Kong's Hang Seng Index tumbled 3.1%. Markets in South Korea and New Zealand also saw significant losses, with the South Korean Kospi falling by 2.5% and the New Zealand Stock Exchange losing around 3%. The broader MSCI Asia-Pacific Index outside Japan dropped 1.7%, signaling the extent of the damage. As the trade war escalates, the Pakistan Stock Exchange, PSX, mirrored global trends, with the KSE 100 index falling 1.19%, reflecting growing investor concerns over the economic uncertainty and the ripple effects of the trade tensions. This volatility has sparked fears of a global recession and further market instability. Adding to the complexity, the European Union (EU) has approved its own countermeasures in response to U.S. tariffs, set to begin on April 15. The EU will impose 25% duties on U.S. imports, including agricultural goods, motorcycles, and clothing, with an estimated total value of around €21 billion. These measures follow U.S. tariffs on steel and aluminum, further escalating global trade tensions and pushing markets into deeper turmoil. With both the US and China entrenched in their positions and retaliatory actions expanding worldwide, analysts predict continued turbulence. The economic fallout is expected to worsen, with global markets bracing for further volatility as countries across the globe, from Europe to Asia, respond to the escalating trade standoff. In a bid to counter the impact of a 29% tariff imposed by the United States on Pakistani exports, the government has decided to send a high-level delegation to the U.S. for trade talks. The delegation, which includes leading business figures and exporters, aims to develop a mutually beneficial strategy after discussions with U.S. officials. Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif chaired the meeting, highlighting the decades-long trade relationship between Pakistan and the U.S., emphasizing the government's commitment to enhancing this partnership. The tariff, part of broader duties targeting both allies and rivals, triggered significant volatility in the market, causing the Pakistan Stock Exchange, PSX, to plunge over 2,600 points, following a 3,882-point drop earlier in the week. In a separate development, U.S. State Department official Eric Meyer met with PM Shehbaz to discuss potential U.S. investments in Pakistan's mineral sector, expressing interest in the country's resources. The meeting followed the successful Pakistan Minerals Investment Forum held earlier this week in Islamabad. Meanwhile, Pakistan's women's cricket team marked a strong start in the ICC Women's World Cup 2025 qualifier, defeating Ireland by 38 runs in their opening match at Lahore's Gaddafi Stadium. Batting first, Pakistan posted a total of 217, with Aliyah Riaz, 52 off 58, and Sidra Amin, 50 off 110, leading the charge. In response, Ireland collapsed to 179 all-out, thanks to brilliant bowling performances from Diana Baig, 4-35, and Nashra Sandhu, 3-30. Pakistan now sits atop the group table and will next face Scotland on Friday in their pursuit of a spot in the 2025 Women's World Cup in India. On the political front, the Human Rights Commission of Pakistan has condemned an inquiry on senior politician Farhatullah Babur by the Federal Investigation Agency. The inquiry, based on a citizen's complaint, has sparked widespread criticism for being politically motivated. HRCP condemned the probe as an attempt to silence dissent, while PPP Shazia Mari defended Babur, citing his lifelong commitment to democracy and human rights. Former Minister Fawad Chaudhry also expressed shock at the inquiry, calling it a violation of democratic norms. As Iran prepares for nuclear talks with the United States and Oman this weekend, a mix of cautious optimism and deep anxiety is sweeping through the country. Long burdened by crippling U.S. sanctions and looming threats of military action, many Iranians see the talks as a rare glimmer of hope. Though skeptical about any breakthrough, even the possibility of dialogue has already had an economic impact. Iran's beleaguered rial strengthened from a record low of 1,050,000 to 999,000 against the dollar, and Tehran's stock market surged over 3% across 2 days, its strongest showing since January. U.S. President Donald Trump, who has previously threatened to bomb Iran if negotiations fail, announced the talks on Monday. While Iranian officials remain wary, public sentiment is torn between desperation and distrust. Citizens like retired worker Amir Hamidyan hope for relief from economic pressures, while others fear escalation and war. Iran's leadership, under growing pressure from economic unrest and potential protests, appears compelled to pursue talks, though hardliners continue to trust in Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei's judgment. Ukraine will mandate the addition of 5% bioethanol to motor fuel from May 1, 2025, aligning with EU sustainability standards. The legislation, passed in June 2024, aims to adapt Ukraine's fuel industry to EU regulations. Lithuania's Orlen Lietuva will supply the first batch of bioethanol petrol to Ukraine, with 4.8% bioethanol content. However, E5, 5% bioethanol, is not common in European refineries, which typically produce E10, 10% bioethanol. The move follows Ukraine's ongoing fuel imports, with 1.2 million tons of petrol sourced in 2024. Ukraine's military chief, Oleksandr Syrsky, confirmed Russia's new offensive in northeastern Ukraine, specifically in Kharkiv and Sumy regions. Increased assaults have been observed, with Russia attempting to push Ukrainian forces out of Kursk region, a foothold held since August. Despite intense infantry assaults, Ukraine maintains a strong counter-offensive strategy. The conflict, which initially saw rapid territorial shifts, has now settled into a stale battlefield. Russia's defense ministry accused Ukraine of carrying out 6 attacks on Russian energy infrastructure, violating the US-brokered moratorium on energy targets. The attacks affected Rostov, Kursk, and Zaporizhzhia regions, with 2 failed strikes targeting a compressor station in Krasnodar. Both sides have repeatedly accused each other of breaching the moratorium on critical infrastructure strikes.